Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something truly fascinating, the unique and seriously powerful AI startup scene that's brewing in Finland.
So here's the big question, right? How does a country with just 5.5 million people, that's fewer people than many major cities, end up building an AI ecosystem that punches so far above its weight on the global stage?
And the answer, it turns out, is not what you might think. Finland's strategy isn't about creating thousands of consumer apps. Nope. It's all about quality over quantity, with a laser focus on deep, industrial, and really high-value B2B applications. This approach helps them build a much more resilient and sustainable ecosystem, one that isn't so tied to the whims of the consumer market.
Okay, so what's the magic formula here? What is Finland's AI secret sauce? Well, the analysis points to three core pillars that really define their success.
And these three pillars, they work together beautifully. First, you've got a foundation in what you might call hard tech, which gives them a serious competitive edge. Then they have access to their own world-class computing power, which kind of levels the playing field. And finally, they've done something really clever. They've turned regulation and governance into a competitive advantage.
And let's talk about that infrastructure for a second, because this is a huge deal. We're talking about LUMI, one of Europe's most powerful supercomputers. This thing is a total game changer. It gives even the smallest seed-stage startups the kind of power to compete with heavily funded US companies. I mean, just imagine a tiny team in Helsinki training a massive AI model that would normally cost millions in computing resources. That's the power of LUMI. It's a massive national advantage.
So that foundation in hard tech that we just mentioned, it leads us right into the next major theme, Finland's incredible expertise in what the report calls physical AI. So what on earth is physical AI? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. We're not just talking about code living on a server somewhere. We are talking about AI that's baked into real physical things that you can actually touch and interact with, from satellites orbiting the planet to mind-blowing VR headsets.
And if you want to understand the scale we're talking about, just look at this number, over 500 million euros. That's the funding raised by just one company in this space, ICEYE. To give you some perspective, that's more than the entire Finnish venture capital industry invested across all sectors back in 2017. Just wow.
So what does ICEYE do? They literally image the Earth, even through thick clouds and in total darkness. They operate the world's largest constellation of what are called SAR satellites. And this isn't just cool tech. It's a game changer for everything from insurance claims to national security, and it's become absolutely critical geopolitically.
And believe me, it is not just ICEYE. The whole ecosystem is packed with these amazing physical AI companies. You've got Varjo making VR headsets so realistic they call it human eye resolution for training pilots and surgeons. Then there's Basemark building augmented reality for our cars, and Doublepoint, which turns your smartwatch into a gesture controller. This is AI meeting the real world in some seriously cool ways.
Okay, so we've seen the hardware titans, but don't think for a second that's the whole story. Finland's AI muscle extends way beyond that, deep into some absolutely critical B2B sectors. And when you look at this breakdown, a pattern just jumps out at you, right? You see generative AI, industrial robotics, health, enterprise intelligence. What you don't see is a ton of flimsy consumer apps. This is all about tackling big, complex, high-value problems. And that's how you build that resilient ecosystem we talked about earlier.
Let's zoom in on the health sector for a moment, because what's happening here is incredible. You have companies like Euphoria and Neuro Event Labs achieving FDA clearance. Now, for anyone in the medical tech world, you know that is a massive hurdle. It's a huge stamp of approval, especially for the US market, and it just proves the world-class quality of the technology coming out of Finland.
And it's the same story on the enterprise software side. These are not trivial problems they're solving. You have Swarmia, which is using AI to help software engineering teams become way more productive. Then there's Abidia, which is automating the absolute nightmare of complex international tax compliance. These companies are creating serious, tangible value for businesses.
Okay, this is all incredibly impressive, but it brings up a really important question. Where is the money coming from? Let's follow the money and take a look at the financial engine that's powering this whole ecosystem.
And what the data shows is kind of a tale of two cities. For early-stage startups, the seed rounds, the funding scene is vibrant, it's active, it's local. But when those companies need to grow, when they get to that Series B stage and beyond, they have to start looking abroad for that big-time capital. And this chart really paints the picture. They call it the Series B gap. It's that critical moment where a promising startup has proven its concept but needs a big injection of cash to become a global leader.
And that's where the local funding can get a little tight.
So you might see a big acquisition like AMD buying Silo AI for a jaw-dropping $665 million and think, oh, another Finnish company sold off. But that is the wrong way to look at it. This isn't failure. It is validation. It's proof positive that the tech is world-class. And even better, that money, and just as importantly, that experience, gets recycled right back into the ecosystem. It's how the whole thing levels up.
So, putting this all together, what's the playbook for the future? Where does Finland go from here? Well, the analysis lays out a pretty clear strategic path forward.
And the path forward is really threefold. First, double down on what you're great at, that physical AI. It's way harder to copy than just another piece of software. Second, leverage what they call the trust premium. In a world getting nervous about AI, being a reliable, well-governed player is a huge selling point. And third, they've got to find a way to bridge that Series B gap we talked about. That's the key to creating true global giants.
And really, this quote from the report just nails it. It says, Finland cannot compete with Silicon Valley on pure consumer SaaS volume. Its comparative advantage lies in complex integrations of hardware and software. It's about not playing their game, but creating your own and winning at it. And one last interesting data point. Look at this. A whopping 85% of these AI companies are based in and around Helsinki. And while there are other great tech cities, this concentration creates this incredible density of talent, ideas, and capital. It's a feedback loop that just accelerates innovation.
Which really leaves us with one big, final question to chew on. In a world that's obsessed with the latest, flashiest software trend, is Finland's deep, patient focus on solving hard, physical problems actually the smarter, more resilient strategy for the long run?
So there you have it, a quick look into Finland's really unique AI scene. Now, just as a quick disclaimer, this information was pulled together from a mix of manual and AI-powered research, so it's always a good idea to verify the specifics for yourself. Thanks so much for joining us.